a wonderful new resource to inspire your fundraising success. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz. This is the first day from the Fundraising School, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Pamala Wiepking. Pamala is a cherished member of our faculty, and she leads our international efforts as she holds the Stead Chair of International Philanthropy at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, in which the Fundraising School resides. And Pamala, it's so great to have you back with us on the Fundraising Schools podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me again.
Pamala co-locates so much more than the rest of us. Sometimes she's here in the United States, other times she's in her home nation of the Netherlands, giving us that international perspective on philanthropy and fundraising, which is also now contained in a new book called The Fundraising Reader, published by Routledge. And Pamala is joined by two of her colleagues in publishing this book. Pamala, tell us about your other two colleagues and why the three of you put this book together.
Well, all credit goes to the lead editor, Dr. Beth Breeze from the University of Kent, because she came up with this vision and idea that we needed to create something called the Fundraising Reader. And she asked me and Donna Day Lafferty to join her in this effort to try to get a more publicly accessible information, text about fundraising out there in the world. Because both of us have been on the European Foundation Association's Fundraising Association fundraising program accreditation committee, a very long name. So we've been looking at fundraising programs across Europe, and we noticed how challenging those programs is found to find suitable literature to use in their fundraising courses. And we know that outside of Europe, and especially also outside of the US and UK, fundraising education is often non-existent. So for those people that want to train themselves in fundraising, there is almost no resource. And that is what we wanted to create. We wanted to create an accessible, cheap, available resource with all the text on fundraising you could possibly dream of.
And so when I hear the title, The Fundraising Reader, I'm thinking perhaps that these might be essays, stories that might motivate me, examples that can inspire me. Is that what the reader is, or are you teaching techniques, or both?
It's both. We cover everything from how to fundraise, but also what is fundraising, because is it a profession or is it a hobby? We have lots of different texts inspiring people, motivating people, but also teaching and educating people on what fundraising is and how you can practice it. We have a large session, for example, on the ethics of fundraising, because above anything, fundraising needs to be an ethical profession because of all the pressures that is on fundraising. And we end the reader with our vision for the future. So we include text on what will AI do in fundraising. And there, I just have too many darlings in there to highlight them all. But one section I really enjoyed editing is the section I did on the 3 different rights. We have a reading on the fundraiser's Bill of Rights, a donor's Bill of Rights, and a beneficiary Bill of Rights. And I think this highlights 3 different perspectives on the same topic, which is important in fundraising. It's not just about a donor. It's not just about the beneficiary. It is also about the fundraiser. So, and that is also covered in several of the readings. For example, Cassandra Chapman's charitable triad theory, where she highlights that you need to look at all these 3 actors in order to better understand what fundraising does for an organization.
Pamala, when you talk about all 3 categories of people having rights in this transformational relationship, can you just describe for our audience, what does that mean about fundraising as a craft, fundraising as an approach, that this isn't transactional, that there are, again, these deep-seated understandings of meaning and rights that all parties involved bring to the table in a fundraising relationship?
Yeah, great question, Bill. So Amelia Garza and Jennifer T. Holmes, they wrote this article, The Fundraiser Bill of Rights, where they highlight that as a fundraiser, you also have rights within an organization. So you should not be mistreated by a donor. Your organization should be supportive of you if donors are asking really strange things of you. So they really highlight that as a fundraiser, you're trying to do a lot in service of the organization, but there's also limits and you have rights. And unfortunately, fundraising is a profession where people sometimes feel misused. We've also have a very serious article in there on sexual abuse of fundraisers. So it's not all shining when it comes to fundraising, but it's important to highlight all those different aspects.
There's so many important aspects there about self-respect that the fundraiser has, even when he or she is promoting the nonprofit's cause, and meeting that intersection with the donor's motivations and values. Pamala, you mentioned a few of the authors. How did the three of you recruit these authors? Of course, you guys travel the world. You have huge Rolodexes with lots of relationships. How did you recruit these authors? What types of people are in this book that we're going to be reading?
Well, actually, we did not recruit them because we bought the copyrights of all the articles. So we had Dr. Breeze had luxurious funding from the Pierce Foundation to be able to buy the different copyrights for all the readings we wanted to include. So we started with a blank slate and we just started reading. Of course, all three of us are teaching in fundraising. I teach principles and practice of fundraising, and both Donna and Beth teach similar courses at their universities. So we've had a lot of experience with what works and what doesn't work in the classroom. But beyond that, we went out and looked for any type of fundraising materials, especially from an international perspective, because one of our wishes was that this would be a truly international volume where text from all over the world would be included. And one of the sad things we found out, there is not a lot of writing on fundraising outside of the US and UK. We reached out to many people during the first phase of this project, but they kept saying, well, we just use translated text from the US, or yeah, we have a one-on-one on fundraising, but yeah, you cannot include a one-on-one on fundraising from Vietnam, from Singapore, from Russia, and from Brazil. So we could only select one of those. And we have a wonderful one-on-one on fundraising from Russia. But yeah, so there are international readings in there, but not as much as we hoped we would find. But beyond that, we just got to select the readings we thought were influential and that were meaningful to people aspiring to be a fundraiser, but also people who have been in the profession for over 20 years will find treasures in the fundraising reader.
And as we know, Pamala Wiepking is a voracious leader. Yes, if you're hearing or seeing her last name, yes, she is that Wiepking who, along with Becker's, read over 500 studies about generosity, philanthropy, charitable giving, and distilled that into the 8 donor motivations. That is a seminal work in our field and that every fundraiser is well familiar with. And Pamala and her colleagues have taken that love of reading and reading about philanthropy and charitable giving and fundraising and put that into the fundraising reader. Pamala, if you could help, maybe some of our audience, if you could expand, please, don't necessarily understand these other international contexts. You talk about that there's so much, resource and teaching available in the United States and in the United Kingdom, but in other countries, even in free market economies, even in Western democracies, let alone in other cultures in the East and in other locations around the world, don't have either that same type of approach to philanthropy or those same resources available or a different expectation of what it means to be taught about fundraising and philanthropy. I know I've run into that sometimes in my international conversations about the fundraising school. Can you help our audience understand that aspect and how this reader is trying to fill some of those gaps?
Yes, it's just not a program that's been taught in universities across the world, in the largest part of the world. So if you want to be a fundraiser, how you learn it is on the job. You just happen to end up in a function where you have to fundraise, and then you're taught by your colleagues, and you have to learn just by whatever information you can get. And we are really hopeful that the fundraising reader can help those people too. So to give a wide range of readings on debates in fundraising, so you're aware of the new trends. For example, we have different debates there. For example, the role of power in fundraising. We have debates about donor-centric versus community-centric fundraising. We have readings about, which I personally really love, about how your clients can also be donors, because some of the readings say, well, you should never ask your clients to give, but we have a wonderful reading by Rona Fernandez called Fundraising in Your Own Backyard, inviting clients to be donors, who spells out how you can do that. And she shows examples of organizations that have done that very successfully.
Wonderful resource, the Fundraising Reader, published by Routledge. Dr. Pamala Wiepking, one of 3 editors. And while we talk much about the international context, this is still a wonderful resource in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and across the world. And we have our copy at the Fundraising School and are looking through those chapters and updating our curriculum and citing this accordingly. Pamela, where can folks obtain this wonderful reader?
You can buy it at the Routledge website, and we also have a flyer for a 20% discount. So maybe we can add that to the recording.
Yeah, we will put that in the show notes that people can look for in the email, and also as they find us on Spotify and other providers of podcasts. And again, the spelling of Routledge, if I'm correct, Routledge, right? I think that's correct. So Routledge Publishers, and look for that flyer in the show notes as well. And again, this reader and the work of Dr. Pamala Wiepking are yet another example of the strength that we have, the unique worldwide strength that we have at the Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, because we are working in this international context as much as we can and wherever possible. And Pamela provides that important leadership to us. This is the type of perspective you'll find if you join us for our academic degree programs, either in our bachelor's degree, our master's degree, or our 2 doctoral degree programs. This is the depth and texture that you will find as you develop your philanthropic leadership skills. And of course, as I mentioned, this also influences the work of the Fundraising School. 22 courses. We teach in person or online. When we're online, we're recorded or virtual, either way, which allows us to teach in the States or internationally. We can do this with our custom training as well, bringing you an entire existing course or knitting pieces of courses together for a course specifically for your nonprofit, your association, or your region. We have our quarterly webinars. We have these free podcasts. We also have Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, the 5th edition, which is a textbook Dr. Wiepking teaches for us in our master's program. All of this available on our website at philanthropy.iupui.edu/the Fundraising School. Gratitude to my colleague today, Dr. Pamala Wiepking, for joining us as our guest on the Fundraising School's podcast, produced today by Jennifer Boffman and Mike Anthony. I'm Bill Stanczykiewicz, and now you are more fully informed on this first day from the Fundraising School.